Imagine a place where mountains touch the stars, where the sun disappears for months, and where moose outnumber people. Welcome to Alaska, America's final frontier, where life is anything but ordinary. It's a land of extremes. Over 3 million lakes, 100,000 glaciers, and winters so long and dark, time feels frozen. There are no interstates, few cities, and more wildlife than Wi-Fi. So, what's it really like to live in a place so vast, so wild, and so breathtakingly remote? In this video, we explore why life in Alaska is unlike anywhere else, and why it's not for everyone. Number 1. Alaska's vast geography and isolation. Alaska is absolutely enormous. We're talking 665,400 square miles, which makes it bigger than Texas, California, and Montana combined. If you placed Alaska over a map of the continental US, it would stretch from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Pacific. That's how massive it is. But what's more surprising is how empty most of that space is. Despite its size, Alaska has just 732,000 residents. That's fewer people than in San Francisco alone. This creates one of the most extreme cases of low population density anywhere in the country. But it's not just about size. It's about how disconnected it is. Alaska is completely cut off from the lower 48. You can't drive there unless you go through Canada, and there are entire regions within Alaska where no roads exist at all. That means some towns are only reachable by boat, plane, or snowmobile. The state has more pilots per capita than anywhere in the US, simply because air travel is a necessity, not a luxury. Remote villages depend on airlifts for food, medicine, and mail, especially in the winter. This level of isolation shapes every part of life. Think about grocery shopping. Some communities receive deliveries just a few times a month, and weather delays can leave store shelves empty for days. Need to see a specialist doctor? You might have to fly to Anchorage or even Seattle. And internet? In many places, it's slow and expensive, making remote work more difficult unless you're in a major city like Anchorage. Alaska's geography is also incredibly diverse and wild. It has 100,000 glaciers, 3 million lakes, and 34,000 miles of coastline, more than the rest of the US combined. It's beautiful and untouched, but that raw beauty comes with logistical nightmares. Whether you're trying to build infrastructure, run a business, or just ship a package, everything is harder, slower, and more expensive. That's what makes Alaska feel less like another US state and more like another planet. A place where nature dominates and human activity is the exception, not the rule. Number 2. Harsh climate and seasonal extremes. Alaska's climate isn't just cold, it's a different breed of cold. Forget about scraping frost off your windshield or a few chilly nights in January. In Alaska, winter can last up to 8 months with temperatures that can drop to a bone-crushing minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the interior regions, like Fairbanks. In Barrow, now officially called Utqiagvik, located above the Arctic Circle, the sun doesn't rise for more than 60 days each winter. Imagine going to work, eating dinner, and sleeping, all in complete darkness, for 2 straight months. It's called polar night, and it's not for the faint of heart. That extreme cold brings more than just discomfort. It affects everything from transportation to construction to mental health. Cars need to be plugged in overnight so the engines don't freeze. Pipes need to be double insulated or they'll burst. And if you don't dress properly, layered wool, thermal boots, and Arctic-grade parkas, you're risking frostbite in under 10 minutes. Even dogs wear coats and boots in some places. And while the winters are infamous, the summer extremes are just as wild. In places like Fairbanks, you can experience the midnight sun, with over 22 hours of daylight in June. The sun might set just past midnight and rise again by 2 a.m. You'll see kids playing baseball at 1 a.m. and locals mowing lawns under golden twilight skies. While that sounds magical, it also disrupts sleep cycles and can make daily routines feel surreal. Another major challenge is the snowfall and ice. Some towns get over 300 inches of snow per year, and entire communities are blanketed in white for months on end. Roads become ice rinks, and flying in and out of these areas can be unpredictable due to blizzards or freezing fog. In rural villages, avalanche risks and whiteouts can cut off communities for days. But the climate also has its upsides. Those brutal winters help preserve Alaska's raw natural beauty, keep pests like mosquitoes dormant for months, and create stunning winter landscapes that are unlike anything in the lower 48. For many, the seasonal extremes are not a burden, they're a badge of honor. But make no mistake, surviving an Alaskan winter isn't just about toughing it out. It's about being prepared, adapting fast, and respecting the sheer power of nature. Number 3, high cost of living versus no income tax. Living in Alaska is like walking a financial tightrope. On one side, you've got sky-high costs, and on the other, unique financial perks that make things a bit more bearable. Let's start with the tough part. Alaska has a cost of living nearly 30% higher than the national average. In places like Sitka and Juneau, it can climb up to 40 to 45% above average. Why? Almost everything has to be shipped in, often by boat or plane. That includes groceries, building supplies, cars, and fuel. A gallon of milk in rural areas can hit $7 to $10, and filling up your gas tank might cost $6 per gallon, depending on how remote you are. Housing isn't cheap either. While median home prices in Anchorage hover around $425,000, they don't come with the same amenities you might find in that price range in the lower 48. Building or renovating a home in Alaska is also more expensive due to harsh weather, remote logistics, and limited construction seasons. Add in high utility bills, especially in the winter months, and you'll see how quickly the budget stretches thin. But here's the twist. Alaska doesn't have a state income tax or a state sales tax, which is rare in the US. That alone can save residents thousands of dollars annually. Plus, there's the famous Permanent Fund Dividend, PFD, a yearly cash payment every eligible resident receives from the state's oil revenues. In 2023, the PFD was $1,312 per person. For a family of 4, that's more than $5,000 just for living in Alaska. Wages can also be competitive. The median household income in Alaska is around $80,000, higher than the national average. Many skilled jobs, especially in construction, energy, fishing, and healthcare, offer generous pay and benefits to attract workers to remote areas. And don't forget, Alaska's isolation has spurred a strong DIY culture, with people growing their own food, hunting, or bartering, helping to offset some expenses. So yes, life in Alaska will dent your wallet, but you're not without tools to fight back. It's a classic trade-off. Pay more at the store, but keep more of your paycheck. For many, that balance, along with the incredible lifestyle, makes it worth every penny. Number 4, crime and public safety issues. When people picture Alaska, they often imagine quiet, snowy towns, peaceful wilderness, and serene mountain views. But beneath that postcard-perfect image lies a much grimmer reality when it comes to crime. Shockingly, Alaska has one of the highest violent crime rates in the entire United States. In fact, according to FBI data, it consistently ranks in the top 5 states for murder, rape, aggravated assault, and domestic violence. For a state with fewer than 1 million residents, that's not just alarming, it's disturbing. Take Anchorage, for example, the state's largest city with nearly 300,000 residents. While it's the economic and cultural heart of Alaska, it's also home to the highest concentration of crime in the state. Property crime rates are well above the national average, and violent crime is nearly double what you'd find in many cities of similar size in the lower 48. In 2023, Anchorage reported over 1,200 violent crimes, including more than 30 homicides, often tied to substance abuse, gang activity, or homelessness. Rural areas aren't spared either. In fact, some of the highest per capita crime rates are found in remote native villages, where law enforcement is severely limited. There are towns where the nearest state trooper may be hundreds of miles away, and emergency response can take hours or even days depending on the weather. This law enforcement gap has fueled a public safety crisis in many communities, particularly when it comes to domestic abuse and sexual violence. Part of the issue stems from Alaska's geography. The vast distances, harsh terrain, and limited infrastructure make it extremely difficult to maintain a consistent police presence across the state. Combine that with high rates of alcoholism, poverty, and mental health struggles, and you get a volatile mix. Many crimes go underreported, especially in tight-knit or isolated communities where victims fear retaliation or don't trust the justice system. Despite these challenges, efforts are underway to improve safety. The state has invested in community policing programs, expanded the reach of state troopers, and worked with tribal leaders to support culturally responsive law enforcement. But progress is slow, and the data remains troubling. For anyone considering a move to Alaska, understanding the public safety risks is just as important as understanding the weather or economy. Alaska is stunning, but safety, especially outside major cities, is far from guaranteed. Number 5. Sparse population and incomplete infrastructure. Alaska may be the largest state in America, but it has one of the smallest populations. Just about 732,000 people spread across 665,400 square miles. To put that in perspective, there's roughly 1.1 person per square mile, compared to the US average of 94 people per square mile. That's not just sparse, that's nearly empty. Entire counties in the lower 48 have more people than some of Alaska's boroughs. This low population density means that building and maintaining traditional infrastructure, like roads, public transit, and broadband, is both incredibly difficult and astronomically expensive. Highways in Alaska are few and far between. The state has about 12,000 miles of public roads, while California, about half the size, has more than 170,000 miles. Many Alaskan towns and villages, especially in the north and west, are not connected to the road system at all. Want to get from one town to another? You'll probably need a small plane, boat, or snowmobile. That's why aviation plays a huge role here. Alaska has over 400 public-use airports, the most per capita in the US mail delivery, often done by bush planes. Even Anchorage, Alaska's largest city, shows signs of this disconnectedness. While it has highways like the Glen and Seward, they don't stretch very far, and the city is hundreds of miles away from the next large population center. The Alaska Marine Highway System, essentially a ferry network, serves as a road for coastal communities. But even that's not enough to make daily life convenient or affordable for many. Then there's the issue of digital infrastructure. Internet service in remote towns is often slow and expensive, with satellite internet being the only option in some areas. Cell service? Spotty at best. Residents in rural Alaska can spend hundreds of dollars per month for limited access to basic communication services that are dirt cheap in the rest of the US. All of this makes life in Alaska uniquely challenging. The lack of infrastructure doesn't just inconvenience people, it defines how they live. From flying to the grocery store to relying on diesel generators for power, Alaskans live in a world where modern convenience is often traded for breathtaking isolation. It's a rugged way of life, but for many that's exactly the point. Alaska is wild, beautiful, and brutally different from the rest of the US. From its staggering isolation and unforgiving winters to the high cost of living and limited infrastructure, life here isn't for the faint of heart. But for those who crave adventure, untamed nature, and a break from the ordinary, the last frontier offers something truly unmatched. Would you brave the cold, the darkness, and the distance to call Alaska home? Or is it better admired from afar?